Yo, welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the Breeze Shooters podcast show. I'm your host, Lou, joined by my very good friend, Chris.
Yes, sir.
You look like a working man on a Monday, Chris. That's what you look
I,
like.
I'm a little bit, it's like a couple of times a year. You ever seen that movie, The Perfect Storm?
Oh, yes. Great movie.
You know,
Mark
a couple of
Wahlberg.
times a year, a couple of things at the same time get together, and and for me, it's one of the things is Monday.
Uh-huh.
The other thing is that the normal activity in my daily Mondays are not that
Not that
active.
got you.
And then it's the perfect storm today. But it's okay. We're good. We're here. We're here. We're here.
Hey, Chris, we got a doozy today. Today we have Rick McGuire, the founder and creator of three phenomenal channels on IG. One channel in particular is called Subway Creatures, which has close to 3 million followers and views daily. It's an insane channel. And then he has which is one of my favorites. It's What New York Eats, and it's with his host Marcos that kind of breaks
And
down these little
that's your
hold
favorite.
on.
That's
Always
the
my
one.
favorite. With that being said, Chris, let's bring in Rick.
Of
Because
course.
I know you're going left with it. So let me bring in Rick.
No, no. I'm just. You like the one that's about food. He got three channels, three successful channels. You personally. Hey, listen. We
Let,
all
let,
have our
let,
vices.
let me rephrase it. I found him through that channel. Let me just say like that. Chris, when they call that your switch wheels. Hey, Rick, how you doing, bud?
Hey, what's up, guys?
How
How's
you doing,
everything,
Rick?
man? Chris,
I'm good, man. How you guys?
good.
Good,
Rick,
good.
let me introduce yourself. Let me introduce myself. I'm Lou, and this is my co-host Chris. And thank you for joining us today. Truly appreciate it.
No, it's my pleasure, guys.
Hey, so I guess Rick, I already told the people a little bit about you, but I guess let's hear it from you directly. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you got going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually born and raised just across the Hudson River in Jersey, northern Jersey. Moved to the city maybe 13 years ago. Then basically was working in production, have a television background, was working as a producer for a bunch of different shows. I started Subway Creatures as kind of a hobby, like a side project thing. I never imagined it would blow up to where it is now. And while I was working as a TV producer, that page just kind of took off a mind of its own, and it blew up to where it is now. And I honestly wasn't able to do both at the same time, TV producer and what I was doing on the side. So I was like, you know what, let me just try and take this to the next step, and wound up starting What is New York in the process, and a couple other brands along the way. And so far so good.
Hey,
Wow.
listen, let me tell you, man. I was glancing through your profile on IG, particularly Subway Creatures. You're near like the 3 million mark, right? Or have you already
It's
surpassed that?
No, I think it's about 2.5 right now, so it is getting up there. But it's one of the advantages I had was starting the platform right when Instagram became a thing. So I wasn't up against one of those hardcore algorithms that everyone is nowadays. So I
Gotcha.
think that helped me a little bit. And the other fact is that there's not really another page that's like you'd consider competition. So whenever something crazy happens in the subway, it's almost like there's only one spot that people really think about sending it. So that helps as well.
So would you say you're almost like the World Star? Like, you know how World Star, when crazy things happen, they go to that place first? Are you
you,
like the World Star of IG almost?
it's funny you say that, because when it started getting to a certain level, I was thinking, like, every time something happens, people yell out "World Star" in the
Exactly.
videos. And I was like, I wonder if I'm going to get to a point where people start screaming out "Subway Creatures" in the
Subway
subway.
creatures.
Yeah, right. And I
That
was
would be
like,
dope, man.
and you know what? There's been a bunch of instances now where, while the person is recording, they're like, oh my god, I got to send this to Subway Creatures, and it's really cool to hear that. I think there's only one other goal left for me as far as something along those lines, and that's for me to end up in some kind of rap song. I want to be in like a rap lyric somewhere. All of a sudden Jadakiss is just rapping and he starts mentioning Subway Creatures. I think that would be so dope.
That would be insane, man. So Rick, all right, I guess like walk us through that point in your life where it seemed like you had a pretty good gig working, producing some TV shows, and then you transition over to this new the IG world. Was that a hard decision? Like what was your motivation, or what was the breaking point to say, hey, you know what, let me go try this?
It was a really hard decision. And you know what, a lot of people who kind of start their own businesses, they always say along the lines, taking that first step was one of the hardest things, especially with me. I have a TV production background. I don't have a business background. So I'll admit, even to this day, it's every day is a learning experience along the way. But also working in television, a lot of the time it's considered freelance work. So you're working for as long as the show exists. So as soon as a show runs its course, you're always looking for the next project. And that kind of lifestyle was getting a little stressful, always looking for, the next thing. And fortunately, I was able to start figuring out ways of monetizing with the IG platforms. And, with that, it made it a little easier because at least I had a little bit of direction, but it was really important to, maintain that audience and, keep the platform going, because, the audience kind of starts tuning out if you don't keep up with it and stay consistent with your posts. So, when I was, the last show I was working on was called The Challenge on MTV. And as soon as that ended, it was one of those points where I was like, I think this might be the time right now where I either go or I don't. I either, put the pedal down or I don't. And I did it, and it was scary. There was a good period, maybe the first year, where I was pretty scared. I was like, I don't, I'm barely making ends meet. I don't necessarily know if this was the right decision, if this is going to work. But things started panning out. I was getting a little bit of help from I work with a licensing company, and what they do is basically when people submit videos to me, we take ownership of those videos, and then we turn around and license them. That's probably the biggest part of the business model for us. And what we also do is we cut whoever sends those videos, and we cut them in on anything that we make off of it. So there's more of an incentive for people to continue to send these videos in. So they're making money. There's also the clout, you get your name tagged in the caption. So, they love reposting that, and everyone gets to see that they were the ones who sent the video in. But those deals are also in perpetuity, meaning as long as that video exists, you're always going to be making money off it as long as we do. So, it's that combination of things that just continues to get people to want to send videos into me.
Oh, wow. So give me a second, Louis, because he mentioned the challenge, and I just started watching the challenge.
That's what you got out of all that.
I know. He dropped some gems, and that's all you got.
No. But I'm gonna go into the gems. I'm gonna go into the gems because the gems are very important. And believe it or not, he's one of the few that actually went into detail in around his business model. But we're gonna get into that in a minute. The challenge. I just started watching it maybe last month, because I'm always interested. Like, I'm a big guy, but I think I could whip these people there. How I know it's a reality show. Is it all like what percent of it is real? I don't want to put you in a jam, I'm just
No, you're not putting me in a jam at all. What I can tell you is the show always has heroes and villains, and the underdogs, the people you're rooting for. I will tell you, some of the villains in the show are the nicest people as soon as those cameras stop rolling. They're all, I mean, for the most part, they do a great job casting, because these people are ultimately actors, but those people, they really are made out, and they accept it, and they totally own it. They love, just the fact that, there's a story plot for them. But I will say, they're some of the nicest people I've met. As far as the challenges go, a lot of that stuff is, set up, scripted, because you got to think, they can't afford to not catch something that's not interesting, because, you've got production schedules. Every minute is another dollar, that MTV's paying. So you can't afford to just hope that you get something on camera that's worthy. So you really, as the producer, you really have to make sure that, these plot lines kind of carry out in a way that's going to keep people interested, as well as, just, you got to keep things, as far as teases going into the next break, you have to
Exactly.
make sure that you have people gripped, especially in television these days. Everyone's attention spans, and this goes for social media as well.
Yeah.
Attention spans are so short these days that it's very hard, especially in a show like that's 60 minutes. It's very hard to keep someone captivated that long.
Okay. Now my second part is you mentioned you gave us a little glimpse of your business model. Have you spent any money on marketing or advertising or to put out your brand? Did you actually?
Not directly. That's one of the beauties of social media. You don't necessarily always have to. Sometimes you can rely on either large accounts or other media outlets picking up your videos or your account. Fortunately, one of the tipping points for me was the New York Post. This is back in maybe 2016, 2017. Did a story on the account, and that basically just floodgates opened at that point. And the one thing that I really try to make a point is I try to keep politics out of everything. And it's just so important. I don't want to alienate one side or another. The second you do that, you've got 50% of your audience going one way, the other going another way. So I try to keep it light. So that's important to me. And the reason I bring that up is the media outlets, they usually have agendas.
Yeah.
And, as soon as they start asking you these questions that are a little off topic, you just got to make sure to kind of avoid those types of things and, keep them on track with what you want as the talking points. But, coming full circle on this, fortunately, that is a way that, your name can get out there. Something I'm doing right now. And this is kind of why I say not directly. So I have a deal right now with the yellow taxis in all of New York City, and basically it's called Curb, and they're an app that is like the Uber for yellow cabs. So we did a deal where I advertise for them once a month on my account, and what they do is they give me a 30-second segment in all of the cabs. So when you get into a cab, one of the first things you're going to see is my host Ferris, who does a viral video of the week, and each week we change the videos. So it's like, hey, what's up? I'm Ferris. I'm going to show you the viral video of the week. It'll be a video from our account all over the screen. And it says Subway Creatures, what is New York? So it's a branding thing in that sense. So it's almost like a barter system. I'm promoting for them where they're promoting for me. And you kind of get that street cred where I'm not paying for the marketing, but at the same time, I'm getting something and they're getting something. Exactly. And it's really a marketing strategy in that sense. So there's not necessarily money, but it's almost like a barter system there.
Okay.
Hey, Rick, that's really dope, man. Hey, quick question though. These strategies and these different ideas for marketing, do you have like a team, or this is all coming from you?
Bro, that's honestly one of the most popular questions people ask me. And right now it's me. I do have I have Ferris who's helping me do a lot of the on-camera stuff. I'm more behind the scenes. I don't want to be, listen, I worked in television for over 12 years. I don't want to be in front of the camera. I'm always used to being behind it. Ferris helps me with a lot of the on-camera stuff. I have another guy named Marco. He's great. He helps me with the food stuff. Subway Creatures doesn't necessarily have a host at the moment. I don't know if it really needs one right now. But that's something I would I'll address if it goes down the road. I see your hand.
Rick,
I see your hand.
I am so cheap. A New York sandwich, I'm there, Rick. I'll cover every crazy thing. Don't worry about it.
I got you, man. I got you. And we got so right now it's a very, very small. I have an intern who's basically working for free just because he loves what he's doing behind the scenes. And again, the licensing company is doing a big chunk of the legal side of things and organization. But other than that, branding, partnerships, marketing, all this stuff is falling on me, as well as expansion. I'm also trying to expand the brand a little bit. Whereas, last year we started the Eats page. Soon to come launch, hopefully within the next week or two, we're going to start doing a New York fashion page, which is going to be streetwear, sneakerhead stuff, throwbacks.
Wow.
It's going to really try to keep the finger on the pulse of New York in general by outstretching into all these different avenues. And, for the fashion one, I'll find someone to most likely host that and be on camera for that as well. We've already got a couple of, good candidates. So, it's all about getting that expansion out there and keep evolving, because you don't want to stay stagnant. That's the worst thing you can do.
Let me tell you, man, everything you just touched on, you definitely do have a pulse of New York City, because those are all the trending things now that people are just crazy about in the city. And it's really cool, man. Kudos to you, man.
Yeah,
Continue to grow, man. It's dope, man. It's really dope.
I appreciate it.
So I guess what was that one clip that kind of like took your business over the hill or over the hump?
Yeah, that's more so less of the one moment that did it. I will admit, in the beginning, I mean, it was like the Wild West. I was posting everything that people were sending in me. I was just happy that people were sending me things. Again, I wasn't anticipating on doing this. And next thing you know, people are sending me videos and I'm like, oh my God, first of all, where are these people coming from? Second of all, how do they even know, that I'm accepting stuff? So they just kept sending stuff in. I was just happy they were doing it. But, then you're posting stuff where it's like the less fortunate people in the trains, people, pissing, whatever in the trains. And it's like, it's almost like depressing. And you're like, you know what? I need to get away from, even though that is, it is what's happening
Clickbait.
down there.
Yeah, exactly. It's the reality.
It is the reality, but you don't want to necessarily put the focus and the spotlight on that. You want to draw a little bit more attention to the people who are doing things. There's a lot of amazing musicians down there. There's been a few musicians that have even, I don't know if you know who Mike Young is. He was a singer down in the subway. He wound
That's
up
the black dude.
like, yes,
he was in
He's
an
amazing.
American. He is amazing. He was
America's Got Talent. He was in America's Got Talent. There was another girl who just recently was on American Idol, I want to say. She won, and she was a performer down on like 96th Street. You have these people who are like untapped resources that are just amazing down there, that those are the people you want to draw attention to, not as much of the less fortunate. There's a huge problem with mentally ill people in New York City. You want to try and here's something that I always tell people. They always are like, well, how do you know the difference between mentally ill and who's just a regular New Yorker? And it's there is a fine line. But you guys probably know, New Yorkers are just those loud people that they draw attention to themselves on purpose. And I try to explain that to other people, and they're just like, no, you guys are all mentally ill. And it's just like, no, man, you got to come and experience this for yourself.
So let me ask you, I guess, coming over from Jersey, when you used to come into the city, was that like where it started for you? Like, like the idea of, what? This stuff needs to be captured and shared.
No, man. No, it wasn't when I first came over. I've been coming from Jersey. Again, I'm only about 15 minutes over. When I was a kid, my dad would bring me and take me to work. And my brother was, doing children's modeling growing up. So I was always in the city, and I was always taking mass transportation. And I was one of those people. I was captivated by the city. And I was like, I always knew it was from a kid. I'm like, I'm gonna live there, and that, like, I have to be in the center of it all. I want to be thrown into the madness. And so in about 2009, 2010, when I did move here, I mean, I was like, I was ready. I was ready for this. And, I was doing the commute and everything. And I was like, that's when Facebook was kind of taking off and Instagram was coming along. And I was like, these are the perfect platforms to kind of launch all this stuff. And fortunately for me, I was able to do it on the side and still hold a job, and now be at this place I'm at now.
That's pretty awesome, man.
That is awesome.
Can you walk us through, like, because you have a couple of shows, how do you get an idea and then kind of bring it to life? Like, what's your process with that? Like, is it something that you share with your team, or is it something that you develop in your mind and then kind of roll it out? Like, can you walk us through that whole process?
Is there psychedelics, weed, anything? Wow.
Hey, Chris, I was trying to dance around that, Chris.
Listen, that stuff does not hurt the creative process, I'll tell you that. But in all reality, again, not to beat a dead horse here, but with my production background, and I've always had this creative side to me that I've loved to utilize. And I'll be straight. I hate the business side of things. I just love the creativity side. I love being able to just, you know, put an idea, see it from point A to point Z, and you know, follow that process all the way through. I think it's amazing. I do try to test a lot of stuff on the pages. You try to test if stuff's going to work or not. You know, I try to stay away from the comment section, but you know, as a business owner and as someone who relies on his audience, it would be pretty irresponsible to not look at the comments. You have to see what your fans are saying. You have to, you know what works, what doesn't work. So, you know, I also do a lot of polls on like story posts, you know, and just get a gauge for, you know, how people feel. You know, there's this big thing with New Yorkers. They love to gatekeep. They love to tell you, you know, this is what a New Yorker is. This is what a New Yorker is not. So, you know, you take a little bit of that, and then you take a little bit of the people who necessarily aren't New Yorkers, what they want to see, because, you know, again, there's this thing where New York is the center of the universe, and people are obsessed with New York City. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're from here or not, all around the world, people want to see what New York's doing, what are their trends they're setting, you know, what did even look at COVID, you know, like they were like, what is New York doing about this? And everyone starts revolving their models around that. You know, that's just one instance and one example, but you know, there's just this thing where you have to not only look at New Yorkers, but you have to think of the people outside of New York as well. And like, how are they reacting to all of this?
Yeah, one of your shows that I'm in love with. I found it, and it's funny that you said earlier that you're the guy behind the camera. So it's a Marco's World, but what is it called? It's what New York eats. Cheap
Yeah,
Eats.
what New York eats and our cheap eats sessions. Oh my God, Marco's great.
He's phenomenal.
Let me tell you, he's born and raised New York. He's born and raised Lower East Side, and it was very important for me to find him and Ferris both born and raised New Yorkers. It was very important for me to find people who were born and raised here, because that's where their experience is coming from. That's their background. And as long as New York's in the title, they have to be New Yorkers. You know, it'd be very irresponsible to bring someone in from Ohio and say, hey, you know, tell us what New York eats. You know, that's not going to work. But Marco's approach to the whole thing, I love it. You know, he's a loud, obnoxious Italian who's going around, and a lot of people don't understand the concept of that. They think that it's just Marco finding the cheapest areas in New York. It's not. What he does is he takes a $20 bill and he says, I'm going to go down Rivington and I'm going to find as many of the best places for the best quality that I can get under $20. And that's the point of the show. So, you know, sometimes he'll find a slice in there where it's like $3.50. People are like, $3.50 for a slice, that's not cheap. But it's like, no, but it's like, factor in all the other 3 places he's going to, you're going to get that slice as well as all this other stuff for under $20. That's the goal to the whole series. And people are starting to catch on slowly, but it is funny to go through the comments and read, you know, people being like, this isn't cheap. What, you know, it's like, you guys, you'll catch on soon enough. You know, it's not one bite. Everyone knows the rules for Dave Portnoy with his pizza thing. The guy sits there and takes 20 bites out of the pizza. You know, it's like, it's one of those funny, ironic things. But again, Marco, you know, he's a great dude. And, you know, I'm excited. He's another very creative person. There's a lot that we have in store that, you know, we're hoping to release within the next fall season. So keep an eye out for that stuff as well.
That's awesome. Do like folks email you, hey, try this spot because it's relatively cheap, or you guys just pretty much wing it in terms of where you're going and looking for stores?
Marco has a pretty good grasp of places he wants to check out. However, he definitely takes into account what a lot of people are saying. As well as we have a laundry list of places that reach out saying, hey, can you do our spot? Can you do ours? Because people are starting to see that, you know, the series is getting a lot of attention. It's blowing up on TikTok. And, you know, it's one of those things that even though it's entertaining, people really are taking it in. They're like, I actually want to check this place out now. And I think a lot of these establishments, these businesses are seeing it, and they're like, we want to get in, we want to be involved with it. And the whole page started from us wanting to help give back to that industry because it just got decimated during COVID. And, you know, we're just trying to get into these small businesses, the mom and pop places, and, you know, say, hey, how can we help you guys? How can we get some asses in seats for you? And, you know, that if anything, if we could help one place, you know, that's kind of us doing our job.
like I said, it's an amazing show, and I do find myself now whenever he kind of like goes into a spot, I say, "Oh, I got to check that out when I drive by," because it's just so cool. And like you said, he's actually taking bites of the food, Chris, and he makes it look so appetizing. I'm like, wow, I really got to try this spot. Kudos to you and Marcos doing a great job on that show. Have you ever had to remove content because of the times wherein people are sometimes a little ultra sensitive? Had to remove content?
Oh, for sure. I had something removed the other day. You just never know. So the thing is the community guidelines that a lot of these platforms have are so subjective. It's almost like, who is the person who's making the call on some of this stuff? Um, there could even be something where there was something like a sex toy or something that had fallen out of someone's pocket and it was on the train. And I just think that's hilarious. I didn't think anything of it. And then it gets reported, it gets taken down, and then you're kind of asking, where's the line? Where do you draw the line on this stuff? And I think the way that it turns out now is that it's basically an algorithm. It's all AI that's flagging stuff. And then once it gets flagged, if you appeal, I think that's when a real person comes along and is kind of the judge on it. But it's very interesting because, I would say TikTok and YouTube have the two roughest or strictest guidelines. Nothing flies on those platforms. There could be even cursing, all of a sudden you get flagged. Instagram, Twitter are a little more lax, a little more lenient, but at the same time, it's so subjective. You just never know. So, with platforms my size, there's usually a high likelihood that you're going to get reported just because people love reporting stuff just to report it anyway. Even if they hate your platform, they're just going to do it just because they hate your platform.
The haters.
Listen, they're out there. And when you have as many followers as my accounts do, it's a given. It's going to happen no matter what. So, you kind of good thing left. The good thing is that there is a secondary person who comes in and kind of like, if that's the case, they're like, no, we're going to let this fly. But stuff's taken down all the time. Originally in the beginning, there was a lot more when they were switching over to stricter guidelines. Now it's kind of like, if you have to ask, just don't post it. Try to be as brand safe as possible, because another thing is brands don't necessarily want to work with you if you're putting up stuff that could go, it's bordering, the line. They don't want to be affiliated with that.
Absolutely.
You got to be very careful. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now with the different platforms, which platform are you more focused on? Is it IG or TikTok?
IG, because that's where the bigger audience is right now. Subway honestly has the biggest following, but I keep saying, the What is New York page, sky's the limit, because you're not stuck in a Subway for content. It could be anything in New York. So, that one has really gotten to a pretty high number in a relatively short period of time. So that one, the Instagram for What is New York, I'm focusing on the most. And I think within the next coming weeks, the Eats page and the fashion page, What New York Wears, those are really going to be a big focus, just because I'm going to have to really take those to the next level.
Wow. So it seems like you have a lot going on. Any thought of bringing your channels over to like streaming sites, like a Tubi or what you call it, Netflix or anything like that?
We worked in a development deal with Netflix actually for the Subway page a few years back in 2018. It's an interesting question, because what their actual response was, you can move it over here, but your fans are getting exactly what they want on your page. So it's kind of like, what are we going to get that's any different from that? And that's kind of where you need to work. I've talked to my friend New York Nico, who a lot of people know, who runs a large account in New York too. He's running into the same problem. He's trying to pitch shows and they're like, but your show is your social media. So why would we pay a lot of money to bring it over here if that's where everything's happening anyway?
And they're gonna get it for free.
Exactly. And they're getting it for free. So, it's an interesting question. It's just a matter of, again, using that creativity and how am I going to find a way to make it different? It could be storytelling, but then you have the HBOs of the world who have shows that are very similar. They have a show called, I think it's like Searching for John Wilson or something like that. It's basically, it's a combination of what I do and what New York Nico does. You know, it's just a guy going around filming everything and interviewing people. You know, you have the Humans of New York, who, you know, he did a show on Facebook Watch and it won an Emmy, but it never got renewed because it was kind of like his platform is what it is.
But
So
with-
it is interesting.
But with the restrictions now being put on IG in terms of time limits with videos, I mean, might be the time, because I know if I'm watching something that you put in, let's say Marco's World, he's going around, he's finding cheap eats. It might be a segment on all of Chinatown, which you could kind of compress it to a half-hour show where you might not be able to get it on IG. So now the timing might be right.
It's a very valid point. And with that, the original content side of things, you know, I use a lot of user generated content, a lot of stuff that people send in. But now with like Marco and Ferris, now that I have these guys, the plan in the fall again is to start getting into that original content, especially with Ferris. You know, we have a lot in the works for Snapchat and possibly YouTube. So, you know, it's a valid question. And you know, we're cautiously taking the steps to kind of move it over in that direction.
Pretty cool. Hey, we got about 5 minutes. I want to give you this time to plug anything that you have going on, where folks can find you, look out for new episodes. Please, floor is all yours. Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So you know, always, it doesn't hurt to follow, you know, the Subway Creatures page, the What is New York page, but more specifically, make sure you follow the What New York Eats page. Great content over there as far as good recommendations. Also, you know, we work a lot with in philanthropy with a lot of organizations with the stuff. That's also what we're going to try and do with the What New York Wears page as well. You know, giving back to the less fortunate, whether it's just going around giving out shoes, socks, you know, to the less fortunate. And we do the same thing with the foods page. So always keep an eye out for stuff that we're doing with that, where, you know, any proceeds, you know, might be contributed to one of those organizations. That's the, you know, with a platform as large as what I have, you know, giving back is always a really important, not to sound cliche, but it's really important for me and the brand I'm trying to create. So keep an eye out for that type of stuff. Like I said, the What New York Wears page, it's going to be a lot of, you know, streetwear, sneakerhead stuff, throwbacks, you know, that New York fashion goes so far, and there's you know, there's no borders to it. So I really have high expectations for that page, and I think it's going to be a really interesting follow.
Hey, Rick, man, I got to tell you, man, truly impressed by what you're doing. I wish you continued success, and I'm glad that you're highlighting New York and you're showing the funny, because I know now a lot of out of towners, when they come to New York, the highlight is, hey, let's go ride the subway. Let's see what the subway's all about. Let's see if we see the crazy.
It really is. It's become a tourist destination. People reach out to me and they say, hey, you know, because of your page, we actually made that like a point to stop into the subway when we went there. And I was like, careful what you wish for, because you never know what you're going to run into down there.
Yeah, absolutely
Rick,
right.
and thank you so much, Rick, for joining us, for agreeing to the interview. You really dropped some gems that, you know, because me and Lou, we've been at this for a few years now, and we're looking, you know, we're always looking to whatever gem is dropped, man. And you dropped a few good ones there, and I appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Absolutely, guys, and good luck with the show, man.
Thank you, Rick, man. Good luck with everything.
Rick,
I'll talk to you, man.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, guys.
Take care.